All right. Welcome to another episode of Peach Pit. We're here with some week 4 review, some week 5 preview. We'll talk about where we're at in the district season. Starting to eyeball district champs a little bit more as we're only a week and a half away to load in at our district championship events, week 6. But we'll get some review content for Statesboro and Charleston that happened this past weekend, and some preview content for Albany this upcoming weekend. But before we get started, we have to make the usual disclaimer that any views or opinions shared on the show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of Peach Pit, any FRC team, First, Georgia First, First South Carolina, or any of their affiliates and sponsors. So the idea behind the show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree District and First South Carolina. We're going to talk about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you see us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. With that said, we'll hop into some host introductions. My name's Kellen. I'm a longtime mentor, current long-distance mentor for 1833, and a mentor for 10482 in Athens, Georgia, and volunteer with Georgia First.
You're muted, Thomas.
Hello, I'm Thomas Priego, and I'm an alum of Team 1833, Team B.
I am David Allred, the drive coach of Team 4451 Robots Garage, and also mentor of our second team, 4864 Innovation Station out of Fountain Inn and Lawrence High Schools.
I'm Brian Carlson with Night Robotics Team 6829, and our first hot take. We're actually going to get this recording out early in the week and not close to the end.
No, we're not, David.
Go team. I knew we could do it. With that said, I'll give a shout out to our producer, Ian. Week by week, more and more chance he's not a witch, but we'll get some more predictions out there and keep testing that theory.
The chances of him being a ghost are also increasing by the week.
Yeah, I'm on the up and up. So keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. I don't know if you can really keep your eyes open for a ghost, but
no one's ever seen him.
I just think somebody needs to bring a duck to DCMP.
Yes.
And a scale. We can bug inspection about it.
We'll talk to the LRIs.
Students that don't get the reference, look it up.
Yeah, get with the times. Monty Python is timeless.
Yes.
All right. With that said, we'll hop into some week 4 reactions for the events that happened this past weekend in Statesboro and Charleston. Thomas, you wanna hop in? Talk about what happened in Statesboro?
So Statesboro ended up being a lot more competitive event, especially in elims, than even I anticipated. All right. So with that being said, just a general rundown. The winners were the alliance that won the event was captained by Team 2974 Walton Robotics, whose fun fact, drive team had their 300th competitive match together at this event. Whoa. 300th. I think they were a crew of 4 freshmen 4 years ago that they have just stuck with for all 4 years. Then 8860, their first pick was Team 8866, who picked up their 3rd blue banner. And yes, I said that right. 3rd blue banner of the year. After winning last week in Asheville, they won again here. After that, we have their 3rd pick, our 2nd pick, 4701, and they also called in the backup robot of 5219. The alliance they beat in finals was the 2 seed, which was captained by 1648. Their first pick was Team 6340, and the 3rd bot was Team 9057. Impact was won by 3635, though there was a tech issue at the event, which led to the MC announcing 75-38, winning the Impact in 2 straight weeks. And EI was won by perennial EI contender 4112 out of South Forsyth High School.
An interesting comment on that EI win is that Forsyth County was almost locked out of Culture Awards this year, because I don't know if they had. I'm trying to recall if any Forsyth County teams will be in Albany next week. But yeah, typically there's 2 or 3 contenders in that EI Impact group, and this year 4112 is the golden, has the has the opportunity to represent Forsyth County in that area.
Kind of like
Just
Yeah.
an interesting note.
Yeah. Oh, stories to tell.
Yes.
Interesting enough, there was some intrigue in quals, and more importantly in alliance selection, with 68 that arose when 68-29 Ignite Robotics declined the 3 seed alliance captain team 4026 to form our own alliance. As one of the main drivers for that decision, and just to answer questions that was asked of me from various parties, we've decided it best that we explain the rationale behind our pick at this current juncture. First and foremost, all due respect to 4026, they have an amazing robot and really did well at this event. This decision was not a reflection on the quality of 4026 and more a reflection on our desire to try and do a different strategy that we felt was our biggest chance to win the event. As such, with that being, we'll lead into it. Starting the night before, when we were having our strategy meeting, we discussed potential partners and who we would want to pick and who we would want to say no, yes or no to if teams jumped us in the rankings. An important distinction, we ended day 1 undefeated and ranked 2nd and thought we had a decent chance to maintain our position. When it became apparent, after being passed by both G3 and 4026, we were caught a little off guard because we were prepared for us to not be in that position. When it became clear that we were not the pick for both Walton and 1648, we had a dialogue of what our team goals were for the event and what we needed to do to maximize both our chances of winning and district points attained at this event. The goal, as always, is we always want to leave every event with a medal. It's fun and it's nice it looks pretty on my shelf, right? That when we looked at the data again, we realized that the best chance we had to do this was to not play the game a standard way. And as such, 4026, being another robot similar to ours, was not a good fit for our goals at the event. And Team 9477 Lambda best equipped us to fulfill an alternative strategy that we feel best maximized our chances at that event. As such, we were drawn to the conclusion that we would say no to Team 4026 just so we could pursue that alternate strategy. Again, all respect and huge congrats to Team 4026, who in fact beat us in elims to knock us out. Their bot was awesome and they had an amazing run, but we just wanted to pursue an alternative strategy that best fit us saying no.
Yeah, this I think leans into something that I've been mentioning all season, is that you want to find robots that complement your own instead of mirroring your skill set. To say like, okay, we're the 2 best robots still available at L4, but there's only 12 spots to score at L4. So if your robots aren't then best suited to keep scoring down the reef or remove algae from the bottom levels of the reef to open more scoring opportunities, you got to figure out how to balance those skill sets to, again, maximize output and potential for your alliance. So interesting insights on your decision there.
Yeah, and one of the things that you want to look at when you're trying to do your alliance selection is kind of, and I know there are some other teams that were focusing more on algae or also looking at this, right, is what bots get an enhancement to their performance because you can do something to make their life easier. And in our second match that morning, we went up against 8866 and 6340, which Stackbotics said we were supposed to lose, right? We knew that. We knew, we're like, okay, we just want to we just want to practice top to bottom. Let's just see what we can do. And we were going to de-algae, but it turns out in that match, another robot was able to de-algae for us, and we did like 10 or 11 cycles, which is almost, I think we're doing usually between between 5 and 8. And so we had this performance boost, right? And so when we're looking at this and we're like, we know that Lambda can score 6 up in the barge, right? So we may be giving up points, but we're getting those points by getting that and making us more productive. Additionally, I really want to give a huge shout out to our 3-bot. One of the things we talked about was there was 26 teams, 24 being picked. And picking a little earlier, we thought we can get maybe a little better bot as a 3-bot. And we picked up what's
10376, the Plutonium Panthers.
Right. They gave neither us or Lambda had an Auton scoring. They gave us an Auton level 1, and they were bringing 5 to 6 level 1 game pieces. Level 1s is something that we will have a very difficult time doing with our end effector. And so if you put all those together, it's like it sort of fit perfectly, and we were doing really well throughout the elims until we faced 40-26. But it was a great event, and it was fun going through that whole process.
All right. And then to scale back, I think a little bit, we'll give a lot of props to 2974 for the ranking game. Looking at the rankings, I think they pulled off a 4.42 ranking score without a climber. That's a pretty impressive benchmark to hit. Obviously, you can have teammates that climb during your matches. That you don't need a climber in order to get that barge RP. But still, to have 53 ranking points through those 12 matches without a climber is a impressive number to put up.
And last week I said with the prediction, I said Walton ranks 1 and wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
They another thing that I noticed at our event, teams are having a lot more mechanical maintenance to do. Don't want to call it breaking, right? But there are things that are creeping up on their bot as we're getting through this season. And I know Walton was going through some stuff. G3 went through some stuff. Lambda did. We did some changes. So as you go to your next event, make sure you start doing checks on your system and be ready, because this is the time of the season where gremlins start creeping up.
Yeah, and that's where it was interesting, because with 1648 having a climber, they were 6 ranking points behind Walton by the end of it. But I think they had the opportunity to be the 1 seed at this event, but it's a matter of that consistency and performance that wound up biting them in the heel. I think as they were making their way through the weekend, they put a really impressive showing together. That was an awesome set of finals matches we got to watch. They had lost to the 1 seed in the upper bracket for kicking them down to lower bracket finals, but managed to kind of hit the 1 seed in the chin pretty hard in match 1 for taking a win. Alliance 1 didn't have climbers, whereas the 2 seed had 2 deep cage climbers. So if the match was kept close enough towards the end of the match, that the 2 seed had an opportunity to put up 24 plus points pretty quick. So the 1 seed really needed enough margin to cover that, which was impressive to see, in particularly in matches 2 and 3, how many points the 1 seed was able to put up in that closing 20-ish seconds while the 2 seed was climbing, to really put enough buffer in there to have some more distance in score between as compared to the first match. But it was again intense set of finals matches there between that 1 and 2 alliance, and I give a lot of props to the robots out there at 2974 again, doing some pretty awesome things. I guess I think they got vision working this week for some auto alignment. I think they have some other changes in their bag as they start looking towards DCMP in a week and a half. 1648 looking in good shape at this point of the season. Need to kind of smooth out some of those mechanical programming issues to smooth out that performance. But a robot with a high ceiling with a demonstrated 2 game piece auton and a deep cage climb. This is a robot that could have an impact in the ranking game. Again, at these district champs, 40-26, as we've kind of mentioned, they're doing a really good job scoring. Another deep cage climb bot putting up some good points. Ignite, as you mentioned, kind of getting some pieces put together, having some higher ceiling performances. Just need to start stringing those together more. I've heard there's another iteration of that climber in the works, so looking forward to seeing that. 6340 was another impressive robot. They were again awesome to watch in those finals matches. The Manatees are having a great season, and again another deep cage climb that's working well. 8866 as we've mentioned. But yeah, there's again, as Thomas mentioned right out of the gates for Statesboro, the elimination matches in this, they all seem to be really close, and they all seem to, the scores were pretty commonly above 100 points. So it was really cool to see the drama build as the double elimination playoff tournament kept playing. So I guess if there are any other thoughts on Statesboro, we'll go ahead and hop over to, what was it?
North
Charleston.
North
Charleston.
Charleston. Okay, so let's review the North Charleston District event presented by the South Carolina Department of Education, otherwise known as South Carolina Part 2. So we had 34 teams gather and go at it again. So I want to go through this review just a little bit different based on some of my sort of predictions from last week that came true. So as discussed, we figured, I mean, since it's basically you're just playing the same event twice, is who's going to come with an improvements and who's going to improve the most. Core ranking game is going to come into play. And that turned out. So in our previous event, we had 2 extra core rank points in the event. This time we had 9. We're not it's not blowing it out of the water, but a big jump in that game. And then who would improve, and then how would these pairings work out? So coming out on top of the rankings was 343 with 54 rank points versus 42 from the last event. That's a big jump because they jumped out strong and hit the core rank point game. They were in the lead the whole event until right at the end when another robot, 2815, the Blue Devil Mechanics, they went undefeated in qualifications and were neck and neck. In fact, jumped 343 kind of near the end. So 343 goes into the last qualification event of the region, of the district event, needing a 6 rank point match to get back into the number 1 spot. And they pull it off. And so a little bit of drama, and they jump back in. So who would they pick? Well, yet another big performance leap from 1287, their first pick, the aluminum assault out of the Myrtle Beach area. They probably more than, I'd say, at least doubled their output from the first event. Also came sporting a brand new 2-piece level 4 autonomous game, and they became the obvious pick for the number 1 alliance. And then they picked up the 8137, the Bulldogs again from the last event, who was the second robot there. 2815, the Blue Devil Mechanics, picked up 4451 as their first partner. And then we picked up 7085, the Wired Warriors, as the second pick, another strong alliance. Then the 5th alliance formed, captained by 8575, Due West, has been doing great this year, and a fast improving 1102 Making Magic. And then they picked up yet another improving robot, 3489 Category 5, and they would go on to play triple offense in the elimination rounds. And then the third alliance looked even more dangerous. The captain by 3490 Viper Drive with 342 Burning Magnetos and 4533 Phoenix. So they had another triple offense strategy with 2 deep climbers. Ready, set, play. I had no idea. I was looking at those alliances going, I don't know who's going to win this. Well, as we battled through the rounds, Alliance 2 in the lower came from the lower bracket and met Alliance 3 that from the upper bracket for a 3 playoff finals. And then the final match was decided by 4 points. the difference really came out just to be we had the Alliance 2 had an autonomous league. We typically had a better teleop game, but Alliance 3 beat our teleop game, and they had that end game that was way better than ours. But they just nicked one of the 2 deep climbs, or they would have been the victorious of this event. So very exciting matches, and it was a great win for 28-15. I think that's their first win since 2011, maybe. And then 70-85, that's their first win. So congratulations to those 2 teams. Really, my heart goes out to the number 3 Alliance, because again, that's a very deserving Alliance that could have easily won this event, as well as number 5 and number 1 Alliance. I think all 4 were big contenders. Also, congratulations goes out to 85-75 with the Engineering Inspiration Award, and 342 the Burning Magnetos with the Impact Award. That's the big overview. Other things that were there in our game, the algae play, picking out algae to get the core rank point increased. A little bit more net play, but not quite as much as maybe you guys saw. But we definitely saw a little bit more with the algae play. And I think that'll continue, definitely increase in the district champs.
Yeah, we saw one robot in PCH at least pivot from their first event to be strictly an algae robot, and that was 4188, that they ditched coral altogether and just had an elevator with a kind of roller style from 2019, which I think was pretty common. But we're just kind of backward dunking algae into the reef or into the barge.
An elevator with 2 side wheels, and they would just go poof over their back.
So it was top roller, bottom roller. So they had kind of a pinching issue for just indexing it into that just right. Oftentimes it would go all the way through. But if they get that cleaned up, they also had some elevator construction issues where their elevator would kind of, the bearing blocks were struggling a little bit, holding the elevator together. And then I think they were getting a couple dinged penalties for contact with the barge, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, an interesting strategy at this point in the season to say, all right, this isn't playing how we expected it to. Let's make a pivot to a strategy that might get us to the spot we want to be.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we've seen with some of like the teams that's also started coral only have added algae mechs and are starting to really play with algae. I know 1833 showed at Gwinnett that they added an algae indefector to their robot that they haven't really started playing with. I know they scored, I think, 1 or 2 in the barge at Gwinnett. But I think more teams are going to start being comfortable scoring it instead of just leaving it there. And so we'll see either teams like 94-77 and 14-14 really being important for Elam's matches, so those algae can get played with, or teams like a Walton or a 16-19 or a 17 or no, old habits die hard, or 1833. We'll see them start really playing with algae at an elite level, because I think it has yet to bite them so far, but Walton's just putting 6 in the processor is eventually going to no longer be as successful because you're devaluing the algae by a net 2 points dependent on that human player scoring them.
Yeah, and I think it starts becoming more important on your first pick because your top bots are going to cycle really fast. And they're going to need algae to get out of the way. And they can't pick an algae specialist to do it in the top 4 as your first pick. So you're going to, even though you might give up a few cycles on coral, but if you got a coral bot that can reliably just pull that algae out and get it out of there, it's going to enable Walton just to focus on what they want to do. Same thing with 1771 and 1833. All the fast coralers want to go fast on coral. And if you could take care of that as part of your coraling, that'll be a very beneficial thing.
All right, we're going to pump the brakes on this conversation. We'll get back to it a little bit later.
All right.
The game
Sorry,
later.
I thought we were there.
But no,
Yeah.
no, but we got this other event coming up, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
we
that-
do?
that-
Coming up?
There's one more.
yeah, the conversation we were getting into is one of the most interesting, I think, of the season as we get towards district champs. But before we get to district champs, we have a little bit left, a little bit of the race left to go, and that is happening in Albany. We got some defending champions of the event with 1771, 1261, 5074, and 7104. I believe at least, what is it, 2 or 3 of those teams will be. I know 1771 and 1261 will be there. I'm trying to recall.
I'm
if
just
either
curious
the Dot
if-
Brothers or Robo Mustangs will be there.
If 8866 just show up for the fun of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Why
One
not?
more time.
Why not?
Uh,
Let's go for 4.
5074 is there, and then 7104
Looks like they've already done their 2 events, so they're
is
so-
already done for the.
And yeah,
for the
any
year.
any minimal possibility of a full defense, a near full defense of the event from last year. But we have another contender in the race. This looks to be a kind of 3-horse race for the top bots being 1771, 6919, and 1261. Obviously, you can't count other teams out for if they're making improvements to the robots or if they get a better alliance construction together. But those 3 robots are definitely the 3 to beat. So it'll be interesting to see what either the qual schedule looks like. Obviously, if these teams are able to string together 1771 and 6919, both with deep cage climbs, 1261, who knows if that's something they'd consider adding it all, but that's where the ranking game is going to be. Obviously, it's nice to seed 1 to be able to pick who you think is the best robot instead of being at the mercy of whoever is number 1 deciding who is the best robot. But yeah, that from what we've seen this season appears to be the race. Anybody have dark horse contenders they're looking out for at this event?
Let me look at the event list one more time. Nothing really. Wired Cats was somewhat impressive at their first event. Watching what they did. You also have 4509. But other than that, I really agree with you, Kellen. I think it's those 3, those 3 people, kind of at the driving force of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah,
just a
very
matter
much.
of those 2 of those 3 combining up, and that's it. Or there's other.
Yeah,
Do you think
yeah,
there
which
are
is
combinations in a triple offense scenario that could go out?
I think, quite frankly, it's the race to see who gets picked by or who gets to pick Team 1771 is going to decide who wins this event.
Yeah, with this being a 27-team event, there were some interesting combinations, to be fair, at Statesboro for teams picking some offensive bots with their 3rd pick at a 26-team event. So who knows if we'll get any surprises. But I think the Auton race, again, those top bots have climbers for 1771 and 6919. So it's hard to use that as your last second boost to have a shot against them. But yeah, I think this is one of those
Have they already played together?
David and Goliath situations.
Yeah, and I think it's tough to compare Albany to Statesboro because when you look at what Statesboro was, you had, though it was 1 less person, the top end at Statesboro was a bit more deep than it is at Albany, right? Because you had 4026 in come elims, 6829 come elims, 6340, 1648, 8866, 2974. That's 7 teams that at one point or another, and I think even the Gear Bears might have joined, of putting up at least 10 coral in a match. And that's what led to Statesboro being as competitive as it was. And Albany, teams at Albany, please prove me wrong, but Albany doesn't really, from what I've been able to see, doesn't really have that same level of depth at that higher crust where you have a bunch of teams that are comparable.
I will give a shout out to Team 10482. It'll be interesting to see where they get to with their kit bot, but their climber is going to be working the entire event this time. So instead of just the last 3 quals matches, so if they get some more of those
Seed first.
ranking points,
They're going to be a captain with a climber.
Well, yeah. So they were an alliance captain at Gwinnett. They seeded 8th and wanted to be the 6th alliance captain.
Seed 6.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting at a 27-team event because they've got a score 1 Coral Auton, and they've got a deep cage climb. So it'll be interesting to see where they get. But go Bugbots, go! All right. With that said, I think we're going to move on to an interesting new part of our the coverage this season. Now that we're 4 districts down, we're going to hop into some conversation about who we think are some of the top bots in the district.
And
yes,
and as always, we'll all agree that Thomas is wrong.
Yeah, correct. This is the way.
For the record, I'm going to talk very calmly here. Every year, I put out top 5 robots. Every year, and I mean this. Every year, I'm proven right. And yet every year we have the same discussion about how Thomas is bad at this. I am not. I'm really good at this. And once again, the only thing I'm not humble about is how humble I am. So, with that being said,
so you're the one who says graciously accept, right?
Oh no, I'm the person who says graciously decline.
That might be worse.
Yeah, most definitely it is. When I heard that being said, I was I have YouTube Premium, so I wasn't watching, but I was listening to Alliance Selection while I was driving to my soccer game for Gwinnett. And when I heard the graciously decline, I about swerved.
Only with your bots, not your cars.
Yeah. So with that being said, Thomas's totally unbiased top 5 list, which I will explain, is really a top 4 list. With that being said, number 1, I've never done this before, and I'll probably never do it again. But the number 1, in my opinion, is really a toss-up between 1833 and 1771. Obviously, 1833 has had more time and more competition experience to really clean up their robot, as to where 1771 has really had only 1 event to show themselves. But as various as I've seen both publicly posted and unpublicly posted videos from both teams at practice fields, I'm confident in saying that both teams are probably going to be the favorites going into DCMP. I'll do a little bit bigger of a rundown next week after Gwinnett is done after Albany is done and dusted. But I really think those 2 teams, I'm comfortable putting them as a joint number 1, tied for number 1 in terms of my rankings. Things are subject to change. This is pre-Albany. I repeat, pre-Albany. So there's a lot of teams who I expect to end up being on this list after seeing their Albany performance. But as of right now, this is the list. Next up, we have team is in 3rd place, because we have 2 joint ones, is team 2974 Walton Robotics. Seed 2nd and win 1st event. Seed 1st and win 2nd event. I mean, need I really say more? They're really putting up pieces. Then I have my first non-event winner first and only non-event winner on this list, as I think it's 1648 G3 Robotics. Though they haven't had that blue banner success this year, especially watching them play in elims with how they are the best floor intake team in the state that I've seen so far. Obviously, 1771 didn't really play with theirs that much at Gwinnett, but it is very, very good seeing them. There are some consistency issues that team has had, but they rock it, and they have a donut climb. fifth.
Hard to beat
And,
that.
You know, hard to beat the donut climb. Like I said, this is Thomas's totally unbiased top 5 list. Right. Then lastly, rounding up our top 5 is Team 8866 Innovation. I've already said it once. I've said it 1,000 times. 3 event wins. What really held them back for me to put them any higher is they don't have a climb, and they're the only, and that's that it's kind of hard to reconcile that. Walton, the other non-climber on the list, is just scoring a same amount and is still ranking quite high. With that being said, going into a couple honorable mentions, I'm still keeping my eyes on you guys. Love them to death. Darren and Team 6919. And in the 7th place, don't put us on the list, Thomas Howard. Is Team 1683, the Techno Titans. I think the Techno Titans, that robot, if and when it works 100% and they really eke that out, I think that robot will be really, really tough to beat. Once they're able to eke out every little ounce of performance that thing has, I still think they can get more from it. That robot is going to be, and I quote, scary good.
Oh, we called it nifty though, but okay.
They've been upgraded from nifty to potentially potentially scary good.
Okay, got you. All right, the challenge has been laid out.
Potentially scary good.
Which
so this is an interesting conversation because I think you need some framing to it.
Yeah.
It's a question of if you're talking about the robots most likely to win DCMP, that's one way to frame it. You might frame it as in a way of like who's ranking number 1, or assuming you ranked number 1 of who is going to be your number 1 overall pick, regardless, or if you're at DCMP of which robot you're going to take because they're the best skill set to round out any given alliance. That it's a looking at your list. I obviously have a lot of the same teams on my list. It's a matter of ordering a little bit. I think I agree with your top 2. I think I'd put 1771 a little ahead. I think their automation and accuracy and their overall coral throughput is going to put them at a higher level. I think 1833's got their foot on the gas for improving their autonomous modes, their vision alignment. They're one of the most proven climbers in the district, so I don't have too many questions there.
33 have AlgaNet game.
Yes.
That's something they're working on.
So
Okay.
they have the algae mech. They can score algae. It's just a matter of when it gets worked into the strategy. Being the most advantageous instead to score algae instead of coral.
Right. So from a distance with the eye test, 1771 is they've got a more complete.
Yeah.
And they have an
exactly. So it's a matter of if it. It's a matter of when, not if, it gets worked into the strategy. Again, stripping out algae is one thing from the reef, but just being simply able to grab it and score it immediately is something you're seeing a lot of the top alliances in the world do at other high tier events around the world that we've not really come to see so far in PCH. Instead, it's more often that those algae wind up on the ground and you might have a 9477, a 4188, or a 1414 grab it and try scoring it, but it's otherwise neglected. That or 2974 worked in that processor. So I agree on those top 2. I think it's a close race. I think both of them are playing that ranking game at an incredibly high level. But are simultaneously also a couple of the bots that are in that, all right, who are we picking first overall at this event because they have the best skill set to round out any given alliance instead of strictly being I'm a coral specialist. I depend so heavily on this thing that I need somebody else to round me out. So I think they have the best well-rounded skill set among the bots in PCH right now. I agree on 2974 as the third. That coral throughput is fantastic. I agree on where the ceiling's at. I think they've been. I'll give them a lot of credit for the processor strategy they've been using. I think they've waited to use it until they're done with L4 and partway through L3 that they might be getting defense to say, okay, instead of playing through defense, trying to score two or three game pieces at a time, let's just start grabbing algae. And they're incredibly fast at it. So they're getting 2 points plus per algae, because there's a lot of it's incredible how often those game pieces wind up getting missed on the human player barred shots. But they're also scoring. They're very intelligent about, all right, if we've got one left and if there's 3 seconds on the clock, we're just going to sit there and wait to drop it, and we're going to make 6 points on that particular algae, because oftentimes it takes so long to roll down to the human player that they don't get that 3 seconds after the match ends to even have a shot at shooting it. So they are earning more than 2 points per algae on those processor shots, but it's an interesting strategy on how much longer it has a use, especially once you start getting the DCMP of, is that going to limit your ceiling, like you said earlier, that instead of scoring those directly in the barge, that you're scoring them in the processor. So interesting to see where that ceiling is at. I've heard some rumors that they might get their climber back on. We'll see how that impacts the ranking game at DCMP. I agree on the cluster of robots you have coming next. I have a simultaneous argument going on in my head of like, okay, who has the proven track record for this season, but who also has the highest ceiling available to them? And then, like I said at the beginning of the framing of it, is who's the bot you're taking number one overall or any higher on your pick list, rather than who has the ability to rank well. I'm a big fan of 1683 in one of these two spots. 6919 again with a proven climber, and I know they did a lot of manual lineup at Dalton, but I have a lot of faith in them getting that automatic alignment figured out, and I'm very curious to see what their ceiling looks like at Albany this upcoming weekend. But again, it needs to be a proven thing heading into district champs, rather than it being they could be this good. It's a matter of, will they be this good? So that's that, and then I have the next robots I have right there are obviously then 8866 and 1648 for a couple robots that are going to be right there in that conversation and putting together again some scary alliances by the time we get down to it at district champs. So the alliance construction game is going to be amazing to watch at district champs as teams decide, all right, who are we looking for to round out our alliance and the skill sets of the robots we have. So a little bit of disagreement, Thomas. No open roasting. No open roasting of picks. But.
Yeah, and I think one thing going into DSMP that I think we're going to see is I think there's going to be a lot more teams or a lot more onus on the top teams taking that algae are never going to touch the ground. I think it's going to be, you have to not floor to net, but reef to net. And that's just going to be the way it's going to be. I think that's
got the robots capable.
If you got the robots capable of it, of course, but that's
that's
what's going to be most important.
Do you have a rough guess out of your district how many can do that?
Well, so to speak to that a little bit, the other robots that have yet to really demonstrate or really they have the skill set, but it's a matter of using it. 8866 is another one with the algae capability. 6919, I believe, has it, if I'm not mistaken. 1683 has algae, but again, not very commonly used. They're just scrubbing it from the reef to this point. 2974 has only got an algae removal. I don't believe they're capable of scoring algae in the barge at this point. Again, they have a week and a half to do who knows what. But yeah, there's some other top robots capable of it. But it's a matter of who's going to come in well practiced at it. That it's not going to be let's try this out and be trying to figure it out for the first time in a high pressure situation.
It's not like you're going to have 8 of them.
No, I think it's
so
probably 4 or 5.
Algae won't hit the ground. Yes, it will. So
no, I wasn't trying to say that it won't hit the ground, but that's going to be the goal of don't let algae hit the ground.
And it's an interesting case because again, a lot of those top robots aren't playing the algae game yet, but all the robots that are algae specialists to this point have to put the algae on the floor to then pick it up and shoot it. None of the algae specialists we have, 4188 can, I think, technically grab it and then go score it. But oftentimes they're still dropping it on the floor to have to pick it up and score it.
But so you probably have, again, more algae specialists than we do. But you got what, 3 of those?
3, and then I saw Mechanisms was leaning a little bit more heavily into the algae game at the end of Gwinnett. That they just have a simple elevator so they can pluck it out of the reef and score it in the barge without it letting it touch the ground. So,
okay.
But yeah, if we're getting into our next conversation, Brian, do you have any?
I'm going to go ahead and throw out my top 5, which is 9, because I didn't know you were going to do this, so I just because South Carolina is just, again, we got this cluster which is different than you guys. That's we don't have one that's just going to like blow the people out of the water. So as of now, there's kind of a semi-clear top 4 that came out of the last event, and then the rest of them are tied for 5th, I guess. So 343, right, has climb game, algae removal and processing, deep climb, autonomous modes, blah, blah, blah. 4451 now has algae removal, no algae to the net yet, and no climb. You've got 1287, who's got a good, great coral game, has a climber, hasn't used it that much. And then 2815 that came out has algae removal and processing, but not algae net, and a deep climb. 8575 is algae removal and processing and a level 2-3 specialist. Then you've got 342 that has the capability to go reef to net. Doesn't have a climber. 281 has the capability to go reef to net. Again, no climber. And then you've got 3490 has a deep climber, mainly coral. And then 1102 is the scariest one on this list, that is basically has the floor pickup game coming, and will be the zippy coral specialist coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, it's interesting weighing those different skill sets, because
Yeah,
it was interesting watching the number two seed at Statesboro. So there would be a defense bot blocking the one coral station, but 1648 wasn't using a coral station, so they were just scooping them up off the floor.
Exactly.
6340 is like, well, if you're blocking one, I'll just use the other. So
Right.
there wasn't a traffic issue because of it. So that floor intake opens a lot of doors to.
Right, and 1102 can algae remove, right, but they can't process it or throw in the net. But yet,
Yeah.
So they could come out of the woodwork, right? So I probably won't know more before district champs, but maybe in next week's show, maybe I'll get some secret insiders, or they just come out, surprise the crap out of everybody, and it's game over.
Yeah, it's very interesting to keep eyes on the moving pieces of, all right, who's changing what, who's adding what's particularly, like you said, if you're competing against each other the 3 times in a row of, well, it's a little different than last time.
It's going to be fun for us. I'll let you know about that next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So my top 5, 1771, 1833. Obviously, 1771 just has a lot more automation going, and they really have a great team there. 2974, 3. What might be interesting is we might have a DCMP if Walton doesn't get a climber going, where they may be at risk of not being on that one alliance. So they've been at DCMP and finals and been winning a lot recently. And I'm curious if this is the year that with that power we have at the top, that we're gonna have a little more of a shakeup at the event.
Yeah, they have been the first pick of the first alliance, I think, in 5 straight DCMPs since 2019.
Yep. I put 6919 in there. because they are they are consistent. They've been every year they just show up year after year. They have their own field. 8866, just doing coral. They're sort of in that their lane and doing well. But I think the speed of the game and the speed of the those top three is going to be challenging for them to catch up to. And then the outside looking in right there, just more because of the fact that just started really excelling yesterday and then late on Friday, 1648 G3. So just going a little more with teams that have been consistent and thinking that 69-19 will be there showing up strong with the climb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an interesting conversation to frame, but yeah, I think if it's more so focused around like, all right, if you assuming you were the number one robot at DCMP, who's your number one pick? But all right, so interesting conversation there, which I think segues perfectly on that skill set conversation of where are we at in the district season? What's the strategy looking like? How are things developing? How are things evolving through the season? I guess the ranking game is pretty well clarified. Obviously, the top bots are going to be the ones that are consistently winning their matches, but also then focusing on as much as they can getting the barge ranking point. Obviously, Walton's kind of a standout amongst those top ranking teams of not having a deep cage climb, yet still being one of the top bots at their events. But yeah, the amount of ranking points put up is there was the slight drop off at Statesboro that Walton put up a few less ranking points, like again, which is incredible to say without a climber that they were only a few ranking points behind what 1771 and Bean put up the week prior at Gwinnett. We'll see what 1771 and 6919 are capable of this upcoming weekend. See if those. I think we're really going to have to wait until DCMP until more of those Coral RP start popping up, unless 1771 just comes out guns blazing and is putting up near 20 Coral by themselves every single match to get anything close, anything kind of above that 5.0 ranking point average.
Yeah, interesting. 1771 at Gwinnett had their cycle. They play definitely during quals than elims, right? Because RPs don't matter. But they would pretty much come close to clearing or getting the Coral RP. But they were actually taking time trying to shoot those algae into the barge and just dropping on the floor and just going on their merry way. I can see them doing a lot more because even if they get that shot working, getting that Coral RP, getting a climb themselves and getting the Auton, if they're talking 5 and 6 RP as a match, it's kind of hard to match that.
Yeah. Again, we'll see. It all boils down to which of these robots is going to need the least amount of help on a match basis to get that Coral RP. And again, that's only going to be easier and easier as we get to DCMP, where you get a stronger roster of teams at the event and a little bit more help on a match basis to put that bonus RP up. So I'm really interested in seeing how high that ranking point average winds up being for the number one robot at DCMP, but I'd imagine it's quite a bit higher than it currently is.
Well, right. So it really comes down to, does your robot have rank point skills, as I call them? So you've got to be able to remove algae, whatever you do with it, it's got to come out. You've got to be able to do that yourself. You've got to be able to fasten that. You have to have a consistent multi-piece autonomous mode for the Coral, and you got to be able to crank out 13 to 15 in a match with removing algae. And if you have a climber, you're ranking, right? So obviously 1771 has those attributes. There are other robots that have those attributes. Some of them with and without climbers, right? So
Yeah.
you've got Walton that can remove and coral like crazy, but no climber. So if you don't have that complete skill set, you don't control your destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two races. There's who's ranking number one, and then who's playing the race of I'm going to put up the numbers or and have the skill set that's going to be so above the rest of the field that I'm going to be the clear number one pick because I can put up X amount of points. I have the right skill set for it. It's an interesting game because a lot of times if you're playing the ranking game, you say, okay, I've got the win locked up, 30 or 40 seconds left. I'm going to go climb. I'm just going to lock up my RP. I'm not going to, punch up my scouting numbers. Where in the meanwhile, other robots are going to say, well, I am not playing the ranking game. I'm putting up all the points I possibly can. And it's an interesting game because you're either playing the ranking game to be the top bot making their choice of who they're picking, or you're putting up the numbers trying to be the number one or as high of a first round pick as you can be.
Yeah, I think what you're gonna I expect that if you are shooting to win DCMP, if you get 5 ranking points, it's a loss.
Yeah.
What?
You need to be averaging 5 or 6 RP.
No, if it's gonna be like 2023 when you got 3, you go like, we only got 3, right? You had to get 4 in 2023. I mean, if you look at what I expect that with the number of 3, 4, and 5 coral bots that are going to be there, Beam may not be able to coral all by themselves, but there's going to be enough help in almost every match where they're going to get that coral RP. They got the climb and they got the auton, right? And if you go into a match like with Bean and 1771. And if 6919 can get there, or if Wall can get their climber on, it becomes a point where if you don't get 6, you're worried you're going to drop, and then you don't control your destiny.
That is you don't control your ranking destiny. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
You have to have the climber to control your ranking destiny, and you have to have algae removal in a good coral game to control your destiny.
Right.
You gotta have a complete robot to control.
But bottom line. If you're going to be the top 3 at DCMP, you better be getting the coral RP almost every time.
Yeah, and so much of that's going to come down to what the match schedule looks like. All right, or we're going to have to play this match for the win because the other alliance is scary enough that we can't really solely focus on the coral RP.
Or you can't go down the reef. Yep.
Yeah, so I think the top average is going to be somewhere between 5 and 6. But yeah, there are going to be matches for those top robots still that you're going to get 4 or 5 RP with something going wrong. But like you said, Brian, is if you're counting RP and saying, all right, we're banking on making 5 RP this match, and you miss something, it's going to cost you dearly in the long run.
Yeah, right now the 2 that I see doing that well are Bean and 1771. But if you get a 3rd or 4th robot in there that can cycle fast enough to make that coral RP a high likelihood of your match, then they don't want to be the odd man looking out, right? Because at that point, if you're not the first pick, then it's going to be rough to be able to challenge that with the fourth best spot.
Right. That's why.
Yeah.
343's in that driver's seat because they've got the game to do the 6 rank point game, right? So and so they don't have to depend on other people to either clear algae or to climb for them or whatever. So they're in the driver's seat right now until somebody comes out with more coral, and or the more coral people can come out with climber in our space.
And an interesting comparison for Walton at DCMP is that if they did that many RP at Statesboro without a climber, they're going to have they're more often going to have climbers on their alliance at DCMP, again, due to the depth of the field. that even if they don't have a climber, there's still going to be a robot that's in the conversation. Obviously, it's going to be a
Right, so
bigger hill for them to climb without a climber themselves, but it's still a robot you're having in the conversation for winning matches.
Right. So then that becomes right. So Walton can rank second without the climber, right? On their robot, they might have other partners to help them, and they're doing a good coral game, and they can clear their algae out. But then, do you need 2 climbers to win?
Yeah.
At your
Yes.
Yes, because it's 6 cycles you're giving up. I score at the end of the game. I go score 6 more level 1s to get that same 12 points, right? And I know Walton was putting stuff in, but we were prepared for that at Albany. And the match against us where we lost, they got all of those algae went into the barge. We had 9 of them up there, right?
Okay.
So if they're sneaking it in, right? But people are catching on to that. And I guarantee you the teams that are going to be captains at DCMP are going to be fully aware of that.
All right. Well, I guess in your district, I would say that's true. That might be true that you need 2 deep climbers to win it. I don't think that's true in our district. I don't think that's true in other districts. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm
in other words,
curious if we're going to see
somebody that's really good at coral and can take algae into the net. 3 of those, that's 12 points.
Yeah, it's so much about alliance construction. Are we going to see full reefs? Are we going to see alliances with the algae capability?
I don't know. Do you think? Well, that's a good question. Do you think you're going to see full reefs? I know that we're kind of getting a preview of the preview, but do you think you're going to see full reefs?
I think it can happen. I think full as in full, like L4, L3, L2 is all full. I don't think we'll see trench get filled up.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking. Yeah, I'm talking about.
But I think I do think that we're gonna start. I think a right combination in quals and even in elims can push that.
Yeah, especially running triple offense. I think there's going to be some scary options come elims, and that gets into one of our next points here for what's alliance construction look like. And again, we're going to see some depth at DCMP that we've not seen all season of getting scary options available on the table of, all right, can we pick up an algae specialist if we don't have those skills ourselves? What choices are those lower seeds going to make of, all right, we need to give ourselves a shot to beat the 1 seed somehow, which I feel like more often is going to lend itself to playing triple offense instead of playing a defender. But is who then takes a defender? Does the number 1 alliance say, let's just pick a defender and send them over there to create chaos, or do they pick from the wealth of robots available? Are they going to have a good enough coral robot to say, all right, you focus on scoring coral, and we're going to spend a little bit more time scrubbing algae and scoring in the barge, and we're going to trust you to run some coral in this match, which I think is going to offer some interesting combinations for alliance construction. But yeah, the defense triple offense trade-off I think is going to be a hard decision for some alliances to make of what's the impact really available with defense. And how much more are you going to need a triple offense option available to you to actually have a shot at upending one of those top alliances?
Right. And that's kind of interesting because of the fact that you look at some of these everybots out there, right? 33-18, and the amount they put up, a higher seed can just take that and say, you know what? Worry about level 1, because there are going to be a lot of bots that are going to be a lot slower at level 1 versus other ones. And they can focus on maybe doing the coral, not worry about level 1, have every bot just sort of fill around and sort of stay out of the way and get in 5, 6, 7 on level 1, allowing the 1 bot or 2 bot to go climb because they're still putting up coral.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be. I have a hard time looking at an alliance and saying you should have 3 coral scoring robots unless you very strictly have shifts of, all right, during the second segment of the match, you're scoring coral for using one of the coral stations, but only when I'm as a top bot or as a, and again, the construction is an interesting thing here. If you have a 9477, an IHOT, or 4188, kind of being a third bot algae specialist instead of a one of the top teams, but I don't like the traffic issues caused by having 3 robots scoring coral on your alliance, unless you have a 1648, a 1261, somebody with the ground intake. But even with two bots scoring coral, sometimes there are traffic issues for knowing, all right, who's scoring where? Are we bumping into each other, causing each other to drop coral? It's got to be a well communicated traffic plan during those matches to make sure there's not that interference.
Right. So, I mean, if you're doing triple offense, you have that ideal third robot that could take it algae from the reef to the net. That's not getting in the way with the coral, can take their spots and come and pick that. That robot's not going to be available late in the draft, right? They might be the second pick on the 7-8 alliance. They're not, it's not like the number 1 alliance is going to get that sucker. So unless you just got a crap ton of them, which you said you didn't even have 8. So well,
and so that's where I'm saying, like the 1 seed, if it has a 1771 or an 1833, says, all right, we have algae covered if we spend time doing it. So we give ourselves the flexibility of being able to pick a coral specialist as a third bot to say, all right, I'm going to spend some more time focusing on scoring algae, while you and whoever the number 2 pick is, you just focus on loading this thing up with coral. I'll come back later on once I'm done with the algae and take over some more of that coral scoring responsibility. But I think that offers a loftier ceiling instead of bots 1 and 2 being all coral and third bot being all algae. I think there's some interesting comparisons there. But I think that 1771 or 1833 is more fluidly, and again, they need to be practicing this now, not waiting until they need to use it at DCMP, being a capable, fast algae scoring robot in the barge instead of coming in a little bit slower than your 9477, your IHOT, your 4188 for playing the algae game.
Yeah, and I think this game is a lot like 2023, where it's not a matter, it's all the details of like, where do you intake from in 2023? In this one, you really have to know where is everybody, not where are you scoring, it's what's the dance going around as that match goes on, and understand where everybody's supposed to be, understand where the priority is, where if somebody's just getting ready to place, if your 3 bot needs to back away so that way that 1 bot can come back and get, but as soon as they get out of the way, they go in and grab stuff. That orchestration has to be figured out ahead of time, because if you're going up against 1771 and 1833, getting an every bot that can score an auto for 3 points and do 6 cycles, you're getting more than a deep climb out of them, right? So I'm not sure you're gonna prevent 15 points of scoring on the upside playing defense, though, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can play that. You just have to figure out what's your game plan and how do you orchestrate.
Well, there's and there's a variety of algae specialists that are still at our district level that are, I think, still important to this game. Maybe not world champions per se. But anybody, if you're going to play triple of any type, somebody's got to clean the floor.
Yeah.
You got to get algae out of the way, because algae is another defender. So if you got a floor cleanup person, even though processing is only 2 points, you're gaining value by the fact that algae's off the floor for your 2 main coral scorers. If that same robot can beat it out of the reef, wow, that's a good robot to have on your alliance if you're going to play triple. You don't want. I saw some trying to do a little bit of triple coral, and it kind of works, but you really got to, you can take your pick, but it's just not an efficient alliance. You got to have one person, I believe. If you're going to do 2 coral people and 1 algae person, I think that works. If you got 2 people that can do algae, remove algae and do coral, that's still a valid combination. If you maybe get a third guy to clean it, there's a lot of different combinations that can at our level.
Right. And if you look at, the how do
2 offense, 1 defense, right?
how do I advance to try to get to the finals at the 3 to 6 is going to be or from 2 to 6 is going to look different than 6, 7, and 8. Down there you can get 2 corals and you can get a real good algae, right? And then when you get that mid pack, you have to think of a different way of how to get creative because we do have a couple of algae specialists, but I would not expect them to be able on the back half of the second round.
Right. They're going to be, I think, picked up early in the second round and won't be available to the 1, 2, 3 seeds.
Yeah.
I don't think
I
28, 23, where that could have been death to you. In this case, it's not per se.
I think that this game, especially this year at DCMP in Georgia, I would say that I disagree. I think this year's DCMP is going to be a lot more similar to 2023's DCMP than we expect.
Okay.
And I think Statesboro kind of proves that. Because if you're looking, I think Statesboro more so than Gwinnett. Because at Statesboro, again, there were 7 teams that are first pickable, right? At Gwinnett, there were 4 or 5 teams that, and by first pickable, I mean you would be really happy picking them as your first pick for 1 through 8, right?
Yeah, not first overall, but first picks.
Like first picks, like bona fides at DCMP. At Gwinnett, I saw another 4, right? And that's major key groups. At Albany, you had 69-19. That's 12 first pickable teams, right? So if you do the math, assuming they seed well and they pick well, that's 12 alliances that are going to have some dudes, right? And if you're going 6 alliances deep of doing that, you're not even touching amazing third bots yet. And so I disagree. I think there is a gap between 1 or 2. And again, in my top 5 list, there is a gap between those top 2 teams and everyone else in the district, in my opinion. But I think at DCMP, I would expect to see stuff like what happened in 2023, where you're going to have depth there that can match those clear top 2 teams.
Well, so my contention there is I think the depth of the field is a little bit more interesting this year than 2023.
Yeah.
I'm number one sad to miss out on having South Carolina teams at the.
Exactly what I was getting ready to say. If we were together, this conversation changes really quick.
Yeah.
And the number 1 alliance could be in trouble.
But even so, I think there's going to be some strategic choices that one of those alliances is going to go. One of those lower alliances is going to make the gamble on playing defense, and there's going to be somebody stellar left as an option for those top few alliances that's really going to elevate their game for saying, all right, this robot can't do much else, but they're an excellent coral scorer, even if it's just L2 and L3, to say if they're left alone, they're still going to score 10 coral by themselves. I think there might be the depth of robots in this district for a third bot of that caliber. Obviously, that's going to involve going and looking at our team list for the season to say, all right, who is that 24th best robot in the district? And because I know from your experience, Thomas, as a alliance selection purveyor of, there are so many times that there are gaffes made on picks, or that alliances make such decisions that allow for some really good robots to slip through the cracks. And I think that's those strategic choices alliances are going to have to make on triple offense or testing the waters on defense. Somebody's going to slip through the cracks this year.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't really I'd say that, but something that another alliance selection specialist Christian, who's on 1833 and was helping out 9477 at Statesboro. Him and I both made this when we were talking to each other about alliance selection. It used to be in the past, I'd make my pick list or I'd make my pick cloud. I don't really have pick lists anymore. But I'd make it and I'd go, oh, wow, this team is dropping. What the heck is going on? Am I the idiot for having them as high as I do? Whereas at Statesboro, and it was a smaller event, so that kind of lends itself. But like in general, I've been looking at events and been seeing this. I sit there and I go, all right, I'm the 2-seed alliance, like at Dalton. I'm the 2-seed alliance captain. There are going to be, I think it's 10 or 11 picks before it comes back to me. Or if not more, probably more. My math, it's too late for math.
All right.
And I work through it, and it's like, oh, they're picking that team, they're picking that team. No teams have been dropping. So I do think that the scouting and the decision making at this event kind of lends itself to that not happening. I just think the depth is still there for first seeds to be afraid.
Right.
Especially if you're able to seed ahead of 1771 and 1833 and break them up.
So I think we can, cover this topic a little bit again next week in our preview. And I think we can. I think what I would be trying to do at this point, given that you've got a little bit of gap between now and district champs, determine your identity. That's my advice. Determine your identity. If you're kind of in that middle of the pack, what do you want to be and how are you going to differentiate yourself to be, I want to be on a good alliance and this is what I bring to the alliance. Like, I'm not sure in your state or district if there's been like a stellar defender, right, that can play with the number 1 alliance, right? Has there been that absolute lockdown, shutdown defender out there yet? Maybe not. If you're going to be that, then do it. Don't like play Coral and say, well, they've got a sort of drop for him that can play good defense. No. No. So if you want to be a defender, do it. If you want to be an algae specialist, do it. Just determine your identity.
Agreed. But yeah, obviously we'll have a lot more time next week too to talk about this conversation and keep hashing it out. But yeah, that's some great advice, David, on teams making choices in this last week of the district season to do any of your auditioning, any of your improvements, anything you can do in that race to rank high or be picked high. But again, focus on your team's goals for the season and make sure you're pursuing those above most everything else. But make sure your decisions over the next week and a half are serving those goals.
Yes.
Right.
But yeah, we're looking forward to seeing that race again shape up as we close out our district season in Albany this upcoming season before we get into district championships. But does anybody have any final thoughts? I will make one comment here on our Thomas Donut Shop bets from the beginning of the season. We had a wager on how many RP to rank number 8 at your first, not first event in your district. How many to rank 8 at district champs? We had a 42 from Brian, a 36 from David, a 40 from Thomas, 43 from me. Ian, definitely not a witch. Troba at 13. But yeah, it's with us seeing kind of that mid-50s number for seed 1. I'm curious. I think we've got a couple in that conversation for the 42 and 43, but I think that RP number is going to be higher than we think it is for that number 8.
Yeah.
Well, since our part 2 is essentially the district champs, my prediction is about right. Number 8 at the last event was 38, not 36, but close enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Seeing how well we did at our early guesses for our gut numbers.
But anyway.
All right. Any other thoughts before we wrap up the show and head towards Albany? All right. Looks like we're all squared away. We'll look forward to having some more conversation next week. We'll see you out there, PCH. Have a good one.
Thanks.